In the discussion board this week, I'd also like for you to introduce yourself to me. You can choose between using a Flipgrid video, Adobe Spark video. You can introduce yourself with photos, whatever it is that you want to share about your background, but please include what you're currently doing in the workforce and what you're looking forward to in this course. Keep in mind this course coordinates with your Learning Through Play course that you're taking with Dr. Ty, and that she and I will be coordinating with the supervision that goes with your early childhood practicum. Excuse me. This week, one of the primary readings that you will have is the NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct and Position Statement. This is all about values and beliefs, and when we become professional teachers, it's really important for us to understand that research tells us, and this is decades and decades and decades of research, over 50 years of research. We've come to understand that what teachers believe is important in teaching and what teachers feel about teaching is actually what comes out in their practices. So it's important at the beginning of this course that we think about beliefs and values, how they shape who we are as individuals, but then what it means for us as we become professional teachers. Values are defined in many different ways, something of high importance, something that we really care about and that individually we really find to be important. That slide should not be there. Let's keep going. I'll come back to that. A value is defined as something that a person believes to be desirable or worthwhile, something that is prized for themselves. When we become a professional teacher, sometimes our personal values are challenged either by the colleagues that we work with, the administration or the building policies where we end up teaching, or maybe the community or families that we interact with. So what we have to do, especially when we become culturally responsive educators, we have to really understand what it is that we believe, but then we have to be open to appreciating and being aware that what others believe is equally important in terms of our development together. But in the classroom, we need to really understand the professional values that are important to early childhood education. So I want you to take a minute and you can pause the content talk. You can use sticky notes or you can use any notebook paper that you have with you right now and try to identify at least 10 individual ideas that you have that are beliefs that are important to you about teaching and learning. What do you believe is important about teaching and learning? Now that you have had an opportunity to list out some things that you believe are important in teaching and learning, perhaps you said it's important that all children are able to learn to their fullest potential. Maybe you said that something important in teaching is that children have fun, or that they have hands-on activities, or that children feel safe. Maybe you said that relationships between the teacher and the children are central to how children can excel in school. Could be many things that you have listed. Now take those beliefs and categorize those. What goes together? What kinds of categories can you come up with? Go ahead and pause the content talk now. Come back when you have yours categorized. Oftentimes when we're doing this with a group of people, that's when you start to see commonalities that you might share with others, or you see what others have said and say, oh yeah, I believe that too. Then when we ask you to categorize your beliefs, it challenges you to really assign some identification for what these beliefs are a part of in terms of education. So maybe it's policies, maybe it's actual teaching practices, maybe it's theoretical points, maybe it's the way that we believe a classroom environment is organized. So your category could be classroom environment. Maybe it's relationships. So anything that you might have said in terms of, it's important to make children feel comfortable and that they're valued, incorporate their interests, maybe those types of pieces went through relationships. Maybe you said something about helping to guide children appropriately through effective discipline and guidance strategies. That might go underneath the label of classroom management. Maybe you talked about how that you believe it's important that families are a part of educational processes. So you might have labeled one of the categories homeschool connections or family involvement. There isn't one right answer in terms of how you may have labeled your categories, but all these beliefs and values are important to teaching and learning. The thing that we also know from research, however, is that there are certain beliefs that are more important because they actually predict student achievement. Which ones are most important to you? So reflect on the values that you've written. Which ones are the least important and why? These are important reflection questions for you to think about because sometimes we might really value something that we have to make sure we're not doing in our practice. For example, some family members, some parents might choose to use corporal punishment in their home, meaning spanking, or harsher discipline. So that might be something that you really have to reflect on and understand that's not going to be a part of your teaching practice. Then we have to think about, which ones are the most important, that if I had to give up something that I really believe, what is it that I can give up? Sometimes that's really challenging. But as we become a professional teacher, we have definite supports in helping us understand the necessary commitments that we should make to children, to families, to our colleagues, and the community. We know this information because our national body of professionals over a period of years have come to shape professional beliefs and values that allow us a clear vision of what we need to do ethically as early childhood educators and how we commit to these when we become a professional teacher. As you read the NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct and Statement of Commitment, you will notice that beliefs and values are organized in 4 different sections. The commitment to the child and how we hold children above all other elements of education. And you'll notice that there are ideals and principles that we ascribe to be able to take care of, not only take care of children, but also to help educate them to the best of our ability the way they deserve. Then you'll notice that there are 3 other sections and how those sections are addressing our commitment to our colleagues, our peers, how we treat one another, how we interact with one another, how we are ethically and respectfully creating trusting relationships of caring, mutual respect, using effective communication with one another. And you'll also notice that we have a commitment to families and how we should develop relationships with families, how we should understand that families are the children's primary teacher and that they should be valued and included in the educational decision making of their young children. And then we also have a commitment to the community because the greater good benefits when early childhood education is effective. Overall, there are core values that drive this ethical code that we ascribe to. And I have summarized these. There's actually, I think, 9 points, and I've summarized and synthesized some of these together. But the essence is we appreciate childhood. We understand deeply the knowledge of child development, meaning that we understand that there's a typical pattern of child development that we can expect children birth through 5 to travel through, and then of course birth through, and then 5 to 8 there's yet another set that happens. And as this is occurring, we know that there are differences, individual differences. We know there are group differences, and that these differences are highly influenced by experience and opportunity and culture. We also understand as a core value of the early childhood profession that we should appreciate and support the close ties between the child and the family. This is something that some of my colleagues in education really struggled with, and you can hear that a lot when teachers may be judgmental of the family's backgrounds, maybe their socioeconomic status, maybe their child rearing practices. It's really important that we understand and that we appreciate those close ties and try to avoid undermining or putting ourselves in a position above the family. We also need to support children in context. That means we need to understand their cultural and linguistic background, that we need to understand their development based on geographic and many other individual factors that influence their development. We also need to respect the child, the family, our peers and colleagues, all of the stakeholders that help develop early childhood effective education. And ultimately, it's our responsibility for children to achieve to their full potential. When children are not able to succeed in school, it is not a result of the child's lack of ability, the child's situation, some deficit of the child. That's what we consider as deficit theories of thinking. Instead, we need to understand and take on the responsibility of helping every child achieve to their fullest potential. So now, this will be a good time to pause the content talk, take a look at the NACCE reading, read through that ethical code document. To introducing yourself this week, I want to introduce you to concept maps. Concept maps are something that we will be using in the project approach. And to help us get familiar with concept maps, perhaps you already are. If you already are familiar, that's wonderful. I'll be able to help provide some readings and some discussions on how to hone those skills a little bit more and how to develop concept maps with children. These are some examples of concept maps that were created by former students that help to shape the project approach project that the different students have selected during their semester. The concept map that I would like for you to post to the discussion board is one where you'll just be introducing yourself to us. So in addition to a video or just a typed introduction, you can also, I would also like for you to test out a concept map by putting yourself in the middle, and then you could do your favorite things, your favorite food, about your family, about your work. Those could be the concepts. So basically, when you make a concept map, the main topic is in the middle. As you can see on the right-hand side, you can see turtles. And then around that turtles, we have at least 4 concepts: habitat, types, characteristics, and where you see turtles. Later on in the semester, you're going to be selecting a project topic with focused children, and you will be practicing project work. You'll be practicing how to teach through the project approach. And one of the first things you do when you plan curriculum this way is you create a concept map. So again, we are just testing out concept maps. You can see this one on the left, it's child interest web. That interest word didn't necessarily transcribe over with my Google Slides to PowerPoint, but that should say interest web. So one of the early assignments that you're going to be doing with focused children that you choose to work with in your current setting is getting to know them. And so this is an example of a student who is learning how to do concept maps. And you can see in purple, she has her concepts like family, books I like to read, food I like to eat, superheroes. That was something that she was being very responsive to the students during their conversation, and toys. So that's a concept map of children who were in kindergarten. So test out, have fun testing out concept maps. When you get one completed to introduce yourself, please post it on discussion board. I will have one posted shortly of myself to just introduce myself further to you all. Oh, here it is again, a little more detailed. Later on, we'll be putting things in like particular standards, and then the details we'll fill in more learning. So some of the homework for this week is to go ahead and read that NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct, complete that reading reflection, read over your course syllabus, and then there will be part 2 of this week's online activity. This is also where I introduce the classroom assessment scoring system. The short version of that is the class, and the class helps us understand the teacher-child interactions that are so valuable to helping children learn and achieve to that fullest potential. So that is going to be presented to you in a separate content talk because we actually in class together in the traditional face-to-face course, we do a 1.5 to 2 hour workshop on class, and so there will be a separate content talk. That is a content talk that you don't have to finish this week, but it's highly recommended over the next 2 weeks to have that completed. Thank you.